Okay, guys, I just discovered something weird happened with one of my previous videos. You'll notice the picture looks warped and weird. I'll be honest with you, I have absolutely no idea why that happened. I think it may be because I tilted my phone in the middle or at the beginning of the video. Maybe you got confused which direction I wanted it to go. Um, so I apologize for that. But you can it looks a little funny, but I'm not gonna re-record it. Give me a break. But you can still listen to it, and you can basically see my warped face like I'm in a weird funhouse mirror. Okay, cool. So let's keep going with Iago and Othello. This is, by the way, this is this is, by the way, what you do with literature. This is what you do with stories. You look for metaphor, you look for irony, you look for complex summary things where you can think about the psychology behind what the characters are doing. Notice little details where a tiny little detail will actually tell you a lot about a character, what they care about. What matters to them, and you can get to know them like people if you pay attention to those details in summary. You notice the metaphors, you notice the ironies, and you look for big ideas. My students often describe stories as being an escape, and they can be an escape. But usually, um, it just means it's sort of like being transported into another world for a little while. That's fun. Sometimes you have a bad day, you want to watch a movie, you live in another world where people are happier and you feel better. It's a perfectly fine thing to do with stories. The point of this class, though, is that there's more you can do with stories. Um, there are ideas in the stories, and you're only going to be able to understand those ideas if your mind is alert to metaphor, to irony, and to the detail work of summary, and also to notice the little details the author put there for you, the audience. Students often spend a lot of time paying attention to, like in a serial killer movie, the killer will leave little clues for the detective. Well, okay, and they pay attention. Oh, look, you can see he's doing this. You figure out what's going on in the story by looking at the little clues. Like if you watch Doctor Strange, you might have guessed earlier that like that little gem thing that he has around his neck that he uses to control time. That's the Infinity Stone. My friend in the movie theater noticed that before I did, and I was mad because I should have noticed that. So you can notice stuff like that. But the bigger, more interesting thing to notice is to notice that not the details the characters put there for the other characters, but the details that the creator of the work of art put there for you, the audience who's watching it. And this is tricky because when you say you want to use movies to escape or to disappear, what you're actually asking for is not to think about the audience, not to think about the author, because what you want to do is forget that anybody wrote this. You want to pretend like it's real, and you want to forget that you're in a movie theater because you don't want to be watching a movie. You want to be living in that world. It's a perfectly fine thing to do. I do it all the time, but there are other more important things that stories can do. And I think what you're going to find in your life is that as you get older, you're going to need, as you spend more time with stories, right now, for a lot of my students, movies are basically roller coasters. It's a fun, exciting thing to do for a couple of minutes or a couple of hours. But you may find in your life you need them to do other things too. You may feel like you need them to help you think. You may feel like you need them to inspire you or to do to make changes in your life or to think through problems. And so this is one of the things the class is aiming to do. I have absolutely no idea why I've decided to talk about this today. I'm just in my backyard making stuff up, and no one's here to stop me. See, if I was in front of you, I'd be able to see your faces, and then I'd be like, oh, these guys are fucking bored out of their minds. I'm going to change what I'm talking about a little bit and do something silly. But you're not here, and I don't know what's going on. So I'm just going to keep talking like a lunatic in my backyard. Really glad I got this selfie stick. Okay, so let's keep going with this. With video 4. So Iago says, oh boy, I guess I shouldn't have said anything to you because you're such a jerk. I shouldn't even be nice. I shouldn't even tell people the truth. To be direct and honest is not safe. I thank you for this prophet. Meaning, thanks for teaching me never to tell the truth to your friends. You see the irony. And then Othello says, stay, thou shouldst be honest. He says, I should be wise. Honesty is a fool and loses what it works for. So Othello's like, no, you should tell the truth. And Iago is pretending, like, no, I shouldn't. I'm not going to tell the truth anymore. My friends don't want to hear the truth. Again, irony. And then Othello talks about how confused he is. By the world, I think my wife be honest, and I think she is not. I think that thou art just, meaning correct, and I think that thou art not. About what you said about my wife. I'll have some proof. Her name that was as fresh as Dian's visage is now begrimed and black as mine own face. Now, right there, I want to talk about that. Her name that was as fresh as Dian's visage is now begrimed and black as mine own face. That is an absolutely fascinating moment to me. All he wants to say, all Othello wants to say, is that Desdemona, her reputation, her name, used to be pure, and now it's dirty, and now it's ruined. The way he puts that is the way a lot of people put it. Her reputation used to be pure, but now it's turned black. It's a common metaphor that we use to say when something goes black, it turns black. It often means something bad. Like if fruit turns black, it's rotted, and that's not good for you. To say that my soul is in blackness or darkness, this means something bad's going on. But Othello does something else with this. And by the way, it's a very common. One of the reasons it's common is because light is a symbol for knowledge. When a cartoon character gets a good idea, they get a light bulb over their head. It's a metaphor. The sun isn't often a common symbol. I don't have the sun to show you, but it's it's sort of sunny outside. The sun is a common symbol for sort of God and light and knowledge and goodness. And if someone is in a cave or in darkness or in ignorance, it's often the blackness and darkness is a metaphor for ignorance. And these are the metaphors that we use. And they're not necessarily bad metaphors at the time. The idea that light is a metaphor for knowledge, we say enlightenment when you learn something, and that darkness is a metaphor for ignorance, like living in a cave. You don't know anything, you can't see what's going on. It's a metaphor. It goes all the way back to that is a metaphor that is 2,500 years old, probably older, like 3,000 years old. It's forever. The problem in this play, and also in American society, is what do you do when the metaphors that we use start connecting to things they were never supposed to connect to, like the color of your skin. And that is a disturbing thing to think about, because if light is a symbol for goodness and knowledge, and black is a symbol for darkness and evil, and it's been that way for like thousands of years, what do you do when, and I'm talking about really ancient Greece and the influences on America and Europe. I don't really know a lot about Chinese stuff or African stuff or different kinds of countries. Africa's not a country, it's a continent. It's tricky. And what Othello does here is he says, all he wants to do is say her reputation used to be pure and now it's ruined. The metaphor he uses is her reputation used to be pure and white and now it's turned black. But he makes it more complicated because he says, and this is where race comes into it, he says her name that was as fresh as Diana's visage. Diana is like the goddess of the moon, Diana. Visage is face, but the face of the moon is white. Her name that was, and Diana was like Diana is like a virgin goddess of the moon, and so Desdemona used to be pure like that. Her name that was as fresh as Diana's visage is now begrimed and black as mine own face. So all he wants to say is that her reputation used to be pure and now it's ruined. Her reputation used to be white and now it's black. That's the metaphor. But he moves the metaphor onto skin color. Her reputation used to be white, like the moon, like the face of the goddess of the moon, who is a white lady. And now her reputation is ruined. It's black. What kind of black? As black as my face, says Othello. This is fascinating because Iago is a great psychologist, and most teachers will tell you that what's happening here is that Iago is racist. I don't think he is. Iago, to be racist, you have to believe in something. You have to believe one race is superior to another. Iago doesn't believe that because he doesn't believe anything, because he's just a nightmare chaos machine who has no center. I am not what I am. What's fascinating about this moment, though, is that Othello sees himself the way his society sees him. He is people will say black people are like this and white people are like that. But like, what do you do when that idea sinks into your own head? He thinks blackness equals badness. Well, what does he think of himself? This is what Iago does. Othello has slightly low self-esteem because other people think black people are not worth as much, and he has put that in his own brain. He thinks he's not worth having Desdemona. He thinks he's not like good enough, not pure enough, not white enough, and this is how Iago gets him. Is that it's not a story about what Iago does is he preys upon the fears that Othello already has, which is that because he's black, he's not good and doesn't deserve Desdemona. That is how Iago gets his hooks into him, because he's just working with something that Othello was thinking about anyway. See you in the next video.